Care Chats. Care Chats with Tanya, Mark, and Nick. Care Chats. Care Chats with Tanya, Mark, and Nick. Grab a mug of care and join us for some Care Chats with Tanya, Mark, and Nick.
Yes, please. Hi, Eli.
Hi. Happy eclipse portal. Happy Mercury in retrograde in Pisces.
Happy so much in Pisces. Actually, our conversation right now is like, that's how Nick and I just took a momentito before the three of us came together. It was like, oh my, Pisces, there's Sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, Mars moves into Pisces, Venus is in Pisces. Ay, ay, ay.
And then we have this like Aries is like, hey bitches, and like everything is like shifting that direction. You know, you've already had the Saturn Neptune conjunction. You know, like when Venus shifts into Aries later this week, she's gonna immediately like hit Saturn, hit Neptune. Like, you know, the sun is like, I'm on my way, baby. You know, like it's a very like Pisces Aries, like ending, beginning, rebirth, water, fire. It's all happening.
I had this image of like all the planets just sitting like laying in a pool on rafts with like their mocktails and cocktails and sunning themselves, and then there's like this rambunctious kid who come and does a cannonball on the deep end and just like, what's going on?
That sounds about right.
For me, it's very much giving and serving. Get your fucking shit together. Like, come on. But in a way that feels like you're held. And I think that it's like while being hugged or held, like get your shit together so it has enough oomph, right? That Pisces to me feels really dreamy right now. Like, what do you want? Where do you see? Like, what do you want? And then I can feel that Saturn Neptune, like also get your shit together and, you know, get some action going. It doesn't have to be like, oh. But then today when I saw that Mars was like moving into Pisces too, I'm like, oh, let's just all be here.
Now the pool is a heated pool.
Heated pool. Oh, that's amazing. Speaking of pools and heated pools, I mean, clearly we would also maybe talk about like what drinks or mugs of care might we be floating with, you know, in the pool, and you know, how are we tending to those things? I know it feels like a leap, but we're so lucky, y'all. We're here with Eli Lawliet, is that correctly pronounced?
Yep.
The gender doula, and we're having a care chat, and we just jumped into the astrological planetary pool.
Yes. I do feel like we're very lucky to be here and to be alive. I know it's a hard time right now. I know that people are struggling, and it's going to be a hard time for a while, and people are going to be struggling for a while. I don't know for how long, but a long time, I suspect. And also, life is so beautiful, you know, and there's so much to be grateful for and to, I don't know, like even just right now, like in Los Angeles, which is where I am, and Tanya Mark, where you are, it's like there's flowers everywhere. It's so gorgeous, you know, and little hummingbirds, and like the flowers and the hummingbirds always lift my heart, you know, and give me a lot of strength, honestly. And also like hummingbirds, especially, like I think about how hummingbirds can appear to be still while they're moving very, very quickly. And I think that, like, I mean, it's an eclipse in a few hours, and that does feel like the energy, you know? And also just like, honestly, like even as a trans person right now, looking at things, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, we're like losing all this ground, or we're regressing, or like we're not progressing, certainly, like we're not. But it's like people are like I posted a story on my Instagram this weekend that was like, trans people are doing cool and miraculous things every day. And I know because I'm one of them.
Yes.
And I know a lot of others too, you know? And so like sometimes it can look like things are still, but they're moving very, very fast. And sometimes it feels like things are moving very, very fast, and you're also like stuck in the mud, you know? So like letting the feeling of it just be what it is or whatever, but also grounding into this knowledge of like, you're not alone. There are queer and trans people doing miraculous and incredible things every day. And you can root into that and root into your ancestors and root into like those webs of care instead of feeling frozen and
Woo.
like there's nothing you can do, you know?
Yeah, thank you for naming that. As a gender nonconforming person who just set their top surgery date for
Congratulations.
July. Thank you. My eclipse portal is like, go, Tanya Mark. Like, become you, authentically you. The world is fucking melting. Go, just move forward. So I
Yeah.
really tap into that as a gender nonconforming, two-spirit, non-binary person. Like, fuck yeah, I want to be in the body, mind, and spirit that I know that I've always been in. And I want that to reflect in all of the ways, period. So there.
Hell yeah.
I feel like what's been stirring in the cauldron of my home and my life lately is spring cleaning.
Mm.
Yeah, my husband loves spring cleaning. I'm not resistant to it, but it's not something that I think of. He always gets so anxious and excited about doing it. So we've been doing slowly but surely cleaning and purging and rearranging things. And yeah, I mean, it's like I have a desk with my computer on it now, and I'm at a little bit of a different angle. But there's also still things that I'm just like, well, that's not what I wanted, but I guess that's what I'm getting. So I guess let's go with that. What's happening there? In addition to still doing the things that I want to do, like continuing my art practice and still making time and energy for that. And then, staying grounded and holding space for all that's happening in the world and going with the flow, finding the balance for me between staying, as Tanya Mark and I say, staying mindfully informed while also taking care of ourselves without getting overwhelmed. So, it's like little drops of medicine. And I'm like, I just want a drop. I don't need a spoonful, I don't need the whole bottle right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Speaking of drops of medicine, I have found myself because of what Eli was talking about, everything flowering, right? The lavender's flowering, the everything is blooming so beautifully. I've been taking in the garden, right? I've got lavender, I've got rosemary flowering, which are gorgeous, like blue purple, dropping that into my water. So a little healthcare tip, you can put those beautiful blossoms that are happening in your water, and then you get the essence of being able to work with those beautiful medicines that are just all, the tranquility of lavender, the protection and cleansing of rosemary, the same with culinary sage. Like, there's little flowers. Those little flowers, actually, it was taught, Nick, by a dear friend of ours, and Eli, I don't know if you've had the honor of meeting them. Madre Jaguar talked about working with, the flowers. That's how I was taught, the flowers of the plants that are blooming and being able to add them in ways. So just calling that in, that's something I'm exploring in my mug of care, is how do I take my mug of water care and bring in the medicines, right? And work with them in a reciprocal way, because I'm tending to those plants and working with those plants in the yard. So
That's such a good shout. There's trans herbalist. Her brand is Ms. T, Mstea, and her name is Laurel. She they pronouns, and they make incredible essences, like just profound. They have one for gender, specifically for like gender euphoria. That's really incredible. But they just recently released a desert mistletoe essence. Oh my God. That I got it like last week. I've used it a few times and I'm like, Laurel, you're a genius. Like, this is just like, it's so good for like transformation and like survival and I don't know even how to describe it. She has it on the website, Miss T Botanica. But flower essences have been a real ally for me this past year, and laurels are some of the best. So shout out to Laurel.
mm.
Maybe we should share a little bit more about what flower essences are generally, since we're talking about them for those listeners who might not know. I actually got interested in flower essence a number of years ago, and my friend and I were like, we want to learn how to make flower essences. So we found someone who came and did a little mini workshop for us, and we went out to the parks and the gardens and we got flowers to make flower essences from. But generally, flower essences are when you take the energetic vibration of a flower or a plant, or even like people do minerals and trees and stuff too, gem essences, and they infuse it into just plain water. It could be, tap water or spring water or anything like that. And it's not actually putting any of the actual physical constituents of the plant in it, but just the energy. And they're really helpful for working on a spiritual level, an energetic level, an emotional level. And all the different flower essences and plants, and even depending on their location where they're grown, have different qualities and vibrations. So that's what we're talking about, y'all.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I want to give a shout to Hood Herbalism. I had an honor of joining their 6-week intro program. Thank you, gracias to Berenice and to her group of folks that they know how to. I mean, you get to take a dip into all kinds of stuff, and flower essence was something they introduced, and it was such a beautiful way to introduce a deeper connection with the plants that I'm already working with, right? So for me, it's kind of this idea of, I think plants are so beautiful and highly intelligent that there's all kinds of ways to sit with them. And if we stay open to it, we can work with it in one way and be open to like, ooh, maybe there's, another way. So to me, that reads as a bunch of ands and not either ors. So thank you for all of the beautiful people that we've mentioned that, are out there sharing their magic and medicine that way.
Yeah.
I love putting flower essences in baths. And really
Yes.
just like allowing my body to slowly absorb it and, fill my whole body in it. Yeah.
Totally.
It takes me back to that jingle of, instead of Calgon, take me away, flower essences, take us away.
Desert thistle, take me away.
Totally.
I also think it's really interesting to notice how different like a tincture versus a flower essence can be.
Yeah.
I did a small little mini class inside of a larger class working with an herbalist a couple of years ago, and they sent us a tincture and a flower essence and then the actual plant itself, so we can make a tea. And we used yarrow. And I remember when I used the flower essence, it had the most like heat or fieriness to it, which I was really surprised that something so subtle had so much like energy, whereas like the tincture or the tea didn't feel as warming. I was like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, flower essences are funny that way because I'm a person, my constitution is such that it usually takes a lot of anything to impact me, whether that, I mean, just regardless of what it is, I'm just like kind of built like a mountain, energetically, physically, all of it. And so, like, the first time somebody suggested a flower essence or gave me a flower essence, I was sort of like, okay, it's not really going to have any impact on me at all. Not true. Right. And I think like one of the things that's been really interesting for me about working with essences is, first of all, I often don't, if it's not the desert mistletoe, which I feel very strongly right away, but most of them I don't really feel right away. But if I work with them consistently and then look back, I'm like, oh, and so like that's been an interesting feature of flower essences in my body and my constitution. But also like the difference between working with a plant, like you said, in a tincture and an essence, it's like the essence is really so much more of an energetic experience than a tincture, which to me feels more physical. And so like, and then also, I mean, because speaking of yarrow, like these plants are so incredible, and yarrow is such an ally, and I use it in multiple forms almost every day. And I have a hydrosol also from Ms. T, shout out.
Yeah.
The yarrow hydrosol that I use like as like a boundary spray,
Mhm.
right? And then I take it internally as a tincture, and then I have it as an essence and like multiple different essences that I take, because yarrow is this incredible ally for boundary work,
Mhm.
right? And for like helping us see clearly what's mine, what's not mine, you
Whew.
know? And it just it works on so many different levels. And if you're working with a yarrow hydrosol tincture essence, you know, all in the same time, it's like you get it's like boom, boom, boom. You know, you get like every
Mhm.
level of yarrow, which is a really good one to get every level of. It's such an
Whew.
Yeah.
ally. So yeah, but you can really feel each of those like preparations and how each preparation like has its own unique characters and its own unique impacts on
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the calling in of boundary medicine as we're, navigating these times. And look, I love how you said you work with it in all the ways, and that invite of working with it from the inside out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in the way that it calls. I also want to just name that it's also really beautiful when we do this kind of work to ask the plant or flower as well, how
Yeah.
would you like us to work together? It
Yeah.
makes me think of Florida water as an indigenous person. Like, I've had some of my madrina and padrinos like throw that shit on me, like, whoa, you need it, get cleansed, you know what I mean? And just recently I had a really pleasant experience where I was working in an Olympia type situation, and my madrina had gifted me the aerosol of Florida water, because
Mm.
when I had walked into the Botanica one day, I was standing and she just kind of went, psh, and I was like, gosh, madrina, like, I guess I needed it. She goes, sometimes you do, sometimes you do. So I was working with someone, and I brought that in, and like just how different iterations, right? Because you have the Florida water, and for those of you that just Florida water is a beautiful essence of many different flowers that are put together and used in Olympia or cleanse. And that's not the only way it's used, but the way that I primarily know it. And so having that available in its iterations, I think, has also felt really important right now, because as I go to be in the world, or as I'm here virtually, like as I'm holding space, I notice that my system wants just like a little extra, so
Yeah.
having that available, even in the space, right? Or in the space, having that psh, psh. So I have some in my car that was gifted to me from a very gifted herbalist, Naima, who
Mm.
does amazing work in Los Angeles as well. Like, it's those little things, having them around as like, ways to keep our system cleansed, moving, being accountable,
Yeah.
right? In a time when this world, that's how I think we're talking about. I hear three humans talking about how are we being accountable here to our systems, but also being accountable and modeling that type of care for our community and the collective.
100%. And I'm glad that you mentioned that part also, because like I think that when we live in a culture where everything is sort of like distilled down to like the soundbite that is good for social media, none of our conversations benefit from like the time and care and nuance that they deserve, around things like self-care, community care, blah 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 blah. So one thing that I've seen pop up just constantly, just constant, drives me crazy. This is one of my pet peeves. You'll have this wave of social media content that's like self-care, self-care, self-care. And then you'll have the next wave of social media content that's like self-care is stupid. It's all about community care. And then you'll have a wave of social media content that's like communities don't know how to function. And then you'll have the self-care will come back, right? So it's just like this like cycle. And I'm like, literally all of you are right and wrong simultaneously, because all you're doing is having this like very unnuanced conversation wherein actually it's like self-care is vital. We must take care of ourselves. If you want to know how that works outside of capitalism, look to Audre Lorde, who really like laid it out for us, right? But you must take care of yourself because that is your responsibility. And in order to show up in community, you have to be able to, be at least able to be accountable, and even if I'm not saying you have to show up perfect, I'm not saying you have to show up resourced, but you have to be like, hey, I'm super unresourced and my energy's all over the place. I need to be held in this way, right? Like not just showing up and like stirring up shit for no reason,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's a piece of it. And then community care, of course, it's vital. We're all ensconced in these webs of connection, these webs of community. We must like attend to the health of those connections, and we must like really like put so much like importance and emphasis on that, because that's what helps us to live, that's what keeps us alive, that's how we get through this moment, right? Is those communities. So yes, that's a part of it. And yes, our communities are largely unhealthy, and especially white people do not know how to be in community with one another, and we have all this ancestral trauma and all of this like reckoning that needs to be done, and this lack of accountability, and like all that has to be addressed, and like all of this is true, right? And so instead of going through this hamster wheel of self-care, community sucks, self-care, community, like stop, breathe. It is actually important to tend to yourself and your community and the earth, and all of those things are one,
Woo!
and so so yeah, sorry, that's my I could beat this drum all day. But I have big feelings.
Well, speaking of breathing, let's just take a breath into all of
Yes.
that medicine.
Ah!
Let that settle, let that sink in, let that integrate. And speaking of breath work, I know that you offer some breath work sessions, Eli, for community, both personal and collective care. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Absolutely. So I have a monthly breathwork circle that's specifically for trans and non-binary gender expansive people. That's called Breathwork for Trans Liberation. It's sliding scale, but I also have unlimited scholarship. So if somebody needs a scholar, the bottom of the sliding scale is $12. But if that's not approachable or affordable for you, then please anybody can contact me and I will give them a scholarship. That is a monthly on the third Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. We usually have a little bit of conversation, we set intentions, we do the breath, and then we have like a little bit of time to come together afterwards. It's about 2 hours. I also do breath work one-on-one. So I can do a breathwork session with anybody who wants it, and beginners are welcome both to the circle. I always explain the breath, I give lots of instruction, and also, of course, to work one-on-one as well. My teacher is Shauna Bryant of Breath Liberation Society, and she has taught me how to do breath work, facilitate breath work in a way that foregrounds agency. So even if you don't prefer the type of breath that I'm teaching or something else, you're always empowered to make accommodations for yourself and to do it in a way that works for your body and your needs. And I celebrate that and encourage it. So anybody who wants to can come. There's no like sort of pre-requirements on that. And I'm thinking about expanding and doing a breathwork circle that's open to all folks and not just trans and non-binary and gender expansive folks. So TBD on that, but folks can always pay attention to my socials or get on my mailing list. That's the best place. And they will know everything that I've got coming up.
Y'all, I've been so lucky to attend one of Eli's virtual breathwork circles, and I have to tell you, it's a special place. Eli holds a beautiful intentional container for our community, and a little nudge here to check out one of Eli's third Tuesdays, right? It's the 3rd Tuesday of the month. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, this has been so gushy.
It's because everything's in Pisces.
Amazing.
Well, thank you for being here and sharing about flower essences and breath work and self and community care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always such a joy to speak with you both.
Yeah. Do you want to share how people can find you?
Yes, I am the Gender Doula on Instagram. My website is thegenderdoula.com. Again, I highly recommend signing up for my newsletter. That is where all of the best stuff is. I think folks know that Instagram is highly surveilled, and there's just only so much I can say on that platform at this point. But in my newsletter, I am able to go deeper. I'm able to say more. I also have a Signal group chat where I just post like the brief, things like here's a discount, for the folks who don't want to read a newsletter, which is totally understandable in 2026, especially. I also am getting ready to open applications for a training for teaching people how to be gender doulas. So that will be featured on the newsletter. If folks are interested in that, they can get involved and get more information there. And I have a book coming out in August that is called Gender Rituals and is going to be incredible. And I'm so excited about that. So maybe we'll talk again
Wow.
then.
Yes, we are coming back, but also congratulations, Eli.
Thank you.
Wow. To everything, to everything. Oh my goodness. Holy shit. Get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're on fire. You're riding
Woo!
this Mars energy.
Absolutely. I'm a Mars and Capricorn native, so.
There we go. There it is.
Yep.
Care Chats. Care Chats with Tanya, Mark, and Nick.